And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world today. It is time once again for Coffee Talk. Coffee Talk Live, or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, and Fistful of Radio. And there it is, fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, unless otherwise stated. As we get ready to jump into the news, take a look at what's going on in the world today, and have a little bit of a chat about it. What are you up to? Got a cat being mischievous behind me. You can't see them in the shot. Hopefully they don't mess anything up while I'm talking. And of course, while I am talking, and this goes to the podcast, there are many of you who are listening and not watching and not able to see. So naturally, I read as many of the comments from the live portion on YouTube as is feasible so that you can keep up with the conversation. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people who have chimed in thus far. Helter is here today. Dragon, D-Lo, Preparedness Veteran, Urban Angst, Spectre, Chris, Donna, Monkey, who's making a flow diagram. Paul Burke says, yes, he caught me live. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Come here. Come here. Come here. Good girl. There we go. And here is Granny Smith. Oh, did I scare you? Don't be afraid. There you go. I think I picked her up too quickly. She got nervous. As well as all people now joining us as we get ready to dive into the news and take a look at what's going on in the world today. And all right, here, go on the desk. And we'll pick up where we left off with something yesterday. We talked about that Chiefs fan who was accused of being racist, accused of being in blackface, of insulting black people and insulting Indians. And the father has come forward about it. He's come forward because his attitude, of course, is enough is enough. This particular article comes from Fox News. It says young Chiefs fan and dad respond to blackface accusations, never meant to disrespect any Native Americans. As we get into the article, there's dad, there's the actual kid. And of course, he was shown in the media with just the black side of his face showing, not the whole thing. Everybody knows that that's a tradition at football games and at soccer games where people dress up. They dress up, they put on paint, they wear costumes, they do all kinds of stuff. And there's a picture of the boy there in the full thing with the headdress and whatever. And they're saying it's blackface. So here we go. A young Kansas City Chiefs fan who was called out by a sports reporter for wearing red and black face paint with a native headdress during a game is speaking out about the controversy, saying he is Native American. And we had heard that. Now it's confirmed. Holden Armenta and his father, Bubba, exclusively joined Jesse Waters' Primetime on Wednesday to respond to Deadspin reporter Caron J. Phillips, accusing a 9-year-old of wearing blackface and finding a way to hate black people and Native Americans at the same time. And that was a quote from Phillips, because I remember the original quote. That's what he said. He found a way to hate black people and Native Americans at the same time. Phillips initially shared a photo of the young boy with only half of his face covered in black paint before additional photos surfaced that showed Holden wearing half red and half black faint paste. The Armenta family says they are part of the Chumash tribe, hailing from California, and in fact used to live on the reservation. Oh no. There you go. There you go. And all people says warmonger Kissinger. Yeah, Kissinger just died. He was 100 years old. I read that. And yeah, all people says kid is part Indian. Preparedness says he's assuming the team's colors are black and red. Correct. He was painted in the team's colors, wearing it's not even a real headdress. It's a costume headdress for the Chiefs, because the father, and I think it's in here, that their particular tribe doesn't even wear headdresses like that. I remember hearing that. I don't know if it mentions it in this article, but they don't even dress like that. That's a Chiefs headdress, and he's wearing a Chiefs football jersey. So you're correct, Preparedness. And I see Brian is here, as well as Deanna. Glad you could make it. Monkey says, poor kid. No kidding, because now he's got to get drug into all that drama. He's 9 years old. You can't just let the kid enjoy a football game. I want to dress up for the football game. Okay, cool. There's probably 50 other people in the audience doing the same damn thing. Oh, we're going to single the kid out and try to make it a socio-political issue and feign racism so that we can claim our false virtue by way of modern victimhood, which I think we're all a bit sick and tired of at this point. There's nothing virtuous about pretending to be a victim. And Preparedness says, thumbs up, people. Yes, indeed. I appreciate it. Again, rumor has it helps with the algorithm. I don't believe that, but I appreciate it. Dragon says it's a shame children can't even do what they like without going through all this political BS. They won't let these kids be children. They're trying to force them to grow up. You know what happens when you force a kid to grow up? They grow up all screwed up. That's what happens. You introduce concepts to them when they're too young, political concepts, social concepts, sexual concepts. You screw these kids up and they end up being wonky adults. Dragons, yeah, I just read that. Let me catch up here. All people says the black reporter's name is literally pronounced as Karen. Is it? And Deanna says, wish people could stop race baiting nonsense. Cruising says, damn reality ruining a narrative with facts. And Boogers is here. Glad you could make it, Boogers. Preparedness said, someone is seriously stirring trouble. Wonder how long it took the photographer to search for the media victim. Yeah, I know. He waiting for an opportunity like that, chomping at the bit. It's like that mixed race car driver, because I don't even think he's actually black. He's mulatto, right? He's mixed, claiming that there was a noose in his garage, and it's the same pull tab that's in every freaking garage on the strip, but he had to get the FBI and everything involved, and then they were like, what the hell are we doing here? Preparedness, oh, I read that. You gotta stay on top of this. And all people says Indians loved Indian team names. And he thought the kid was 5. No, apparently he's 9. And Monkey says, guess those that went after the kid are the real racists. Yeah, you could make that argument. And Gary Edwards is here. Glad you could make it. And Prime says the left loves using children for political gain, whether positive or negative. And that's why you often see politicians, and it's not like so-called Republicans are exempt from this either. They love surrounding themselves with a bunch of little kids at their desk, signing a paper or something, like they're doing it for the children. And they're not doing shit for those kids. It's a lie. Urban says in Ireland, saying Irish lives matter is now a hate crime. I heard that. Isn't that insane? And that's just coming up out of what's been going on in Ireland. And we talked about that yesterday, and we'll rehash something from that a little bit today, glaze over it. because the article that we read yesterday revealed that, in fact, 6 people, not 4, were stabbed, and that person was not a citizen, that he was an illegal immigrant with current deportation orders. All people said the reporter hails from a migrant family out of the place called Saginaw, Michigan, and his entire career is based on race baiting. And Gary said, all hail the super chief. Yeah. But yeah, this poor kid has got to get drugged down that whole scenario and put up with that now, forcing the kid to grow up a little too quick. And you see he's even dressed in the Chiefs. He's wearing a different Chiefs jersey. He's wearing the black one instead of the red one here. And he's wearing that Chiefs necklace that he had on when he was face painted. I guess he's just a big fan, and that's fine. And he wants to wear face paint, let him. Who the hell cares? Let him enjoy his childhood. I'm tired of seeing people stealing childhood from children, from kids, forcing them to grow up, forcing them to accept certain concepts, trying to groom them. Let them just live. It's not going to be that long before they're forced to grow up anyways, just because of the way the world is. You don't have to shoehorn them in there. You don't have to do that. I'm so sick and tired of it. And Bingo is here. He said, just got here. What's up? And all people said mulatto race car driver should have been banned from race driving, just like doctors and nurses get banned from the profession when they violate ethics and lie. Yeah. I don't know if he got in trouble or not. But the FBI came out because it's a hate crime. Oh, there's a noose hanging in my garage. And all the garages had that because it's the pull tab for the garage door. I mean, seriously. And Merv says, did the reporter write an apology letter like Jamal is supposed to do? Not that I have heard of. It's been silent from their end. Haven't heard anything from this guy yet. So we will see what happens. But yeah, he should apologize, and not just say he's sorry, but say that he knows that he is wrong. That's what I want to hear, even though he doesn't believe it. Even though he doesn't believe it. Urban says, good thing the kid is native, or he would have gotten the Covington treatment. No kidding. Another one here from Fox News. And this came up recently, so I just wanted to run this over. It says, world seemingly silent as China expands crackdowns on Muslims and mosques where they worship. China has expanded the crackdown on its Muslim minority outside of the Xinjiang region, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, making its first such effort following international attention on the country's Uyghur population. While the world is fixated on Gaza, a real crime against Muslims is occurring in China, executed by the Communist Party. Alan Mendoza, co-founder and executive director of the Henry Jackson Society, told Fox News Digital, under the guise of consolidation of mosques, the CCP is closing, destroying, and repurposing Muslim places, good Lord, hold still, of worship to suit its campaign of the Sinicization of Islam, by which they mean its repression, Mendoza explained, yet in contrast to the protests seen against Israelis' justified campaign against Hamas, the world is silent when it comes to China's assault on Muslim human rights. Now, why am I talking about this? Because it goes on and on and on, but the bottom line is that when Muslims are attacked, persecuted, subjugated, murdered, enslaved, whatever, anywhere else in the world, nobody gives a damn. Happens in China. It's been happening in China for decades. Nobody cares. In the Middle East, they've been doing it to each other for centuries. Nobody cares. If Israel's in it, it's international news. As soon as Israel touches it anywhere, everybody has a heart attack. They do it to each other all day long. It's like, who gives a shit? So it matters or it doesn't. And that's kind of the point that dude's making here. Where's the outrage with this? This is what they've been doing to these people is worse than what you've seen so far in the Hamas war, is what he's suggesting. I don't know how bad it actually is, but you see the point. And again, I'll bring up that before the incident on October 7th with Israel, that Hamas and another faction in the Gaza had been fighting for a long time, and the Hamas exterminated those people, complete genocide. They're gone. You didn't even see that in the news. Nobody talked about it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares when they do it to each other or if another country is doing it. Israel gets involved, all hell breaks loose. That's what happens. Preparedness says China is protecting its community. They've seen what's going on here. And that could be how they look at it. I don't know. Gary said, didn't a similar false narrative occur when a team named Nick Sandman? He won a big lawsuit, I hear. I'm not sure about that, actually. And Ghost World Primal says, finally caught you live again. God bless you and what you do. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take all the blessings I can get, folks. Dragon says the Western way, international law, human rights, tolerance, democracy, secular dialogue, the battle of ideas have repeatedly failed in fighting Islamic radicalism. And that's true because all those narratives are false anyways. They're all for saving face. Many of the people who propose that stuff, oh, we have to uphold our democracy and all that, don't even really mean it or understand it. But they need it for spin. And Urban says China doesn't want to become majority Muslim like Malaysia. And that globally, the biggest threat to Muslims are other Muslims. That's true. And all people said Nick Sandman is the Covington kid. But I wanted to bring this up because it was mentioned a few days ago. Somebody mentioned or asked about it. What about those Muslims in China? China treats them very badly. Yes, they do. Yes, they do, actually. And China doesn't want outside influence, and they consider this outside influence. And unfortunately, I guess you could say, if you consider it to be unfortunate, they have a right to protect their nationalism. Even if we think something's wrong with it, they have a right to protect their nationalism from outside interference, including from religion. And if they don't like it, I'm sure there's somewhere else they can go, and China would probably even move them for free. You want to leave the country? We'll give you tickets. I bet you something could be arranged, but they won't go. Funny how that works. Speaking of China, and Paul Burke says he heard that Venezuela attacked Brazil. I have not heard that, but if it did happen, I'm sure it'll come up here very, very shortly. Since we're on the subject of China, this comes from the Irish Star. The Irish Star, I don't know if I've read an article from them before. These U.S. states report surges in respiratory illness as flu from China continues to spread. Get ready for it, folks. I keep telling you, they're going to try it. It may not work this time, but they're going to try it. Respiratory illnesses are rapidly rising across the U.S. Health experts are concerned by the surge in reports of respiratory illness across America as a flu-like sickness is spreading rapidly in Chinese hospitals. Yeah, okay. American hospitals are already seeing an unexpected rise in patients with respiratory infections. Emergency rooms, largely the south of the country, are seeing large numbers of admissions of patients with respiratory illnesses. These illnesses include flu, C virus, RSV, and the common cold. You mean like every winter? Like every winter in the United States. Is that what you're talking about? Unexpected rise? It's winter. It's winter. Every commercial's crying about it being flu season for a reason. Trying to get you to go and get a shot at Walgreens. This is unexpected, huh? Hospitalizations are highest among people over 65. No shit. Old people are sick. Oh man, I know I sound so snarky and sarcastic, but I mean, who writes this stuff? Symptoms include, are you ready for it? Fever, coughs, and a sore throat. Most RSV hospitalizations among children. That's an incomplete sentence. That's an incomplete sentence. They must have left a word out. So big surprise, it's the winter in the US and more people are going to the emergency room and whining about having a sore throat than they would in, say, the summer. And gee whiz, people over 65 get sick more often than other folks. I don't know why that could be. Maybe because they're unhealthy. Maybe because they don't exercise regularly. Maybe because they take too many medications. Maybe because they had one too many flu shots. Oh no. Oh. Here we go. Prime Mover says Chinese are unapologetic and nationalist. Correct. That is true. And Deanna says now the dogs have a respiratory sickness too, not kennel cough. I hadn't heard that. Urban says another common cold coming our way. Activate useful mask idiots now. And Monkey says it's winter. People are going to get the cold due to temperature changes. Yeah, and like I said, most people are unhealthy anyway. Not just people over 65. Most people, they don't have a healthy diet. They don't exercise regularly. They probably are taking medications that affect their bodies. You know, they probably don't get enough sleep. They might have some mild form of depression because they hate their job or because of drama in their life or something. All those things are factors. They might not even be sanitary. Maybe they don't brush their teeth right. And that sounds crazy, but your oral hygiene can affect the health of your entire body. All those things can make you susceptible to catching simple illnesses. They really can. And all the hand sanitizer and masks and rubber gloves in the world aren't going to prevent it. And then these people, because they're weak anyway, panic and go to the emergency room. One of the reasons for the high costs of hospitals are unnecessary emergency room visits. Half the people that go there don't need to be there. And so, yeah, in the winter, you have an uptick in people going to the emergency room with basic symptoms of a cold or a flu that the hospital can't even do anything for them about. Paul says he never had the flu and he's 67. I've had it a couple of times, but you feel really bad for a couple of days and you move on. Merv says Hamas attack civilians and babies, return the hostages now, and don't be like cowards towards China. Yeah, you don't see them trying that crap with China. Preparedness says same happens every year. I wonder how many people are falling for that crap. Too many, but they're trying to build it up. They're trying to act like some big wave of whatever is coming from China. We've hashed over a few articles on the subject the last few days. Helter says, meanwhile, in Canada, hospitals are packed 24/7. People dying in emergency rooms waiting because they need to wait 20 plus hours. Yeah, same thing in China also. You can expect it anywhere from a 24 to 32-hour wait, unless your arm has been chopped off or you got bullet holes in you. I've heard that, though, about Canada, and that's your social medicine for you. I don't know why people want that. Anyone who wants that needs to go to a country that has social medicine and take a good look. Urban says in British Columbia, the shortage of doctors and nurses is directly due to thousands of medical staff still being banned for working for refusing to take the shot. This is being challenged in court, but it's a slow process. They're dragging it on purpose. And Merv says Joe Biden was bragging about burning the planet yesterday. And Dragon says American politics and media like to blame China for everything, and a good amount of Americans will believe them. Yeah, they will. People are not that smart. I say it all the time. All depends on what kind of dumb you're talking about. But people are not that smart as a whole. I'm not that smart. I've made a lot of really stupid mistakes in my life. But I think in certain things I'm kind of tuned in, but most people are not that bright, and they don't want to be. They don't want to be. You have to actively pursue knowledge and information and be able to really dissect it in your mind to pick it apart. And Fight the Future says, "Hey David, I had to resub for some odd reason. Big surprise." Because you already know, most of you know, that both Coffee Talk and Prepper University are very oppressed channels with numbers that just don't even make any sense. For example, again, Prepper University has like 65,000 subscribers, but if I put a video up there, I'm lucky to get 500 views now. It just doesn't make sense. And Paul Burke says it was Russia before, now it's China. That's right. It used to be Russia before the Berlin Wall came down. And Anarchy says, "Hi from rural Minnesota, where I'll hopefully be checking out the Aurora Borealis show tomorrow night." Oh, good luck with that. Hopefully it's not overcast. Something that was brought up the other day. So here comes some clarification on the subject from CBS News. And I see MGTOW Cowboy is here. It says, "Cheers from Chicago." Oh, you're right in it in Chicago. CBS News, "Candy company uses cocoa harvested by child labor." Big surprise there too. This came up the other day where somebody was asking, didn't such and such, aren't they using migrant children? Not in the United States, but overseas. And here you see the kid cutting the plants in his underwear. This is not unusual in these countries, okay? It says, "In the blistering heat, CBS News found children in Guyana as young as 5 years old using machetes nearly as big as themselves to harvest cocoa beans that end up in America's most loved chocolates. Our team traveled across Guyana's remote cocoa belt to visit small subsistence farms that supply the U.S. chocolate giant Mars, which produces candies including M&Ms and Snickers." This doesn't surprise me at all anyways, and I'll get into this in a second. "We found children working at each one of the farms despite the company's vow to have systems in place to eradicate child labor in its supply chain by 2025. Well, shoot, CBS, it ain't 2025 yet. Give them a chance. They're working on it. Mars has also boasted about rescuing thousands of children who are listed as beneficiaries of what it calls a robust monitoring system meant to keep children off cocoa plantations and in schools." Sure. Maybe they ought to worry about that instead of having a purple M&M and making the M&Ms non-binary. Maybe this should be more so their priority. CBS News exclusively obtained copies of these lists from a whistleblower and was able to confirm that some of the listed children were still working in the fields. Haha, Mars lied. Murina, 15, is one of those children. She has worked in the cocoa fields since she was 5 years old. Education is a luxury, with her school an hour-long walk away and transportation options expensive. People, you know what? People out there, walking an hour is a drop in the bucket, okay? Only in Western countries do people complain about having to walk from their front door to the mailbox. In places like this, hell, walking 20 miles a day is no big deal. Anyways, where was I? Last year, her family harvested only one bag of decent quality cocoa. A 140-pound bag of the product fetches about $115. Last year, field supervisors contracted by Mars visited Murina. They gave her a backpack and school books with the slogan, "I am a child, I play, I go to school." But in the 18 months since that first visit, the family told CBS News no one had checked to see if Murina was in fact in school. So a representative from Mars came to the plantation 18 months ago and gave people backpacks. Isn't that sweet? "I feel sad. I want to be like a medical doctor," Murina said. "Good luck. But my family doesn't have money for school." Her 12-year-old brother, Gafalo, also works in the fields but longs to join his peers in the classroom. A cocoa field supervisor who spoke to CBS News on the condition of anonymity said almost every data used to make up the lists is cooked. It is not accurate, according to adding that he had personally made up lists before. He and other supervisors told CBS News they were under pressure to produce names, often with only 24 hours notice, and he said the companies never verify the information. Nobody's come back to check as to whether it's true or not, he said. Oh, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. As I catch up. MGTOW wants to know what we're talking about. We talked about Muslims in China. We talked about the Redskin or Kansas City Chiefs kid accused of blackface being an actual Indian. And now we're talking about chocolate. And he says, you guys heard Henry Kissinger passed away. MGTOW says, yes, we heard that. 100 years old. I thought he was going to live to 175 because, drinking all that blood plasma and doing his satanic rituals. I jest. I don't know what he did. But yeah, he was 100 years old. Dragon says, I heard Nestle recently went all the way to SCOTUS to be able to continue having literal slavery in their production pipeline without being held liable. This shouldn't be news to anyone. Helter says the entire Western world runs on the literal blood and some sweat from third world countries, but hey, great chocolate for $1. And Fight said, let me see here. Brian says most people don't wash their hands after using the bathroom or they do it wrong. Hey, to be fair, I've been in some bathrooms where you don't want to wash your hands. Monkey says the company is playing PR, but once the media backs off, they'll be right back to status quo. And Diana says Guyana is a poor country, doubtful anything changes. And MGTOW Cowboy said nothing like exploiting the third world. Dragon says, you kids have it good. Back in my day, I had to walk 20 miles to and from school while lugging heavy books uphill both ways, hip deep in snow. And this reminds me of, I think it was back in the 80s when Dole was under investigation. Remember Dole sugar or Domino sugar was under investigation, and they were boycotting Domino sugar because of slave labor in Haiti in the sugarcane fields. Because Haiti and what's the country they border with? Haiti and the other country that borders them on that island were routinely kidnapping people from each other to work in the sugarcane fields, and some of those kids were as young as 3. And it was like 60 Minutes or 2020 or somebody doing a documentary on it, and they showed all these kids that were little kids, like I said, 3, 4, 5 years old, missing fingers. Missing a hand because of accidents using the machetes, and that they don't even feed them. You think you want to talk about horrible slavery conditions? They sleep outdoors in all weather. They didn't eat. They weren't fed by the handlers. They had to forage for their food, so they had to eat on their own. And if they tried to leave, of course, they would be tortured. So worst possible slavery conditions in the 1980s for the from the Domino sugar plantations. Domino's like, we didn't know. Unbelievable. And Paul says, if you think about it, would you rather eat or go to indoctrination schools? And Murr says, give a federale a fish and you can do what you want. All People says a reporter tried to make a big deal of a Vietnamese immigrant sleeping on the floor for years before getting rich and was informed on air that it was normal in their culture, and he still did. Dominican Republic, thank you, Monkey. I forgot what they were bordering. And All People says referring to Dominica or the Dominican Republic. Yeah, because it's an island. Of course, Haiti is on an island and it's split in half. And like I said, they would cross each other's border, kidnap children, and force them to work in each other's sugarcane fields. It was a common practice, and it probably still goes on. Urban says, I question the motivation of someone who goes on and on about past historical slavery while ignoring current living slavery today. Yeah, because that's what this is slavery. Like I said, I'm sure it still goes on in Haiti and in Dominican Republic. Who kidnaps a child, forces them to sleep outdoors, tells them to, and they had to dig up plants and eat raw plants. They weren't given food. And like I said, it was 60 Minutes or 2020 that did the documentary. And that stuff goes on all over the world now. And Cowboy said supposedly there's still over 250,000 child slaves in Haiti. Wouldn't surprise me at all. That would not surprise me at all. And so this is, you're not going to find that going on in a factory in the United States, because that was the question the other day. But overseas at the source, where a lot of the raw materials come from, you can find it if you care to look. I think it's funny though that Eminem's Mars solution to the problem was to distribute backpacks with a slogan. Backpacks with a slogan printed on them. It's absolutely hilarious. It's sad, but it's funny looking at it from the outside. That's their solution to the problem. And here's the slogan again. I am a child. I play. I go to school is what's printed on the bag. Girl never been to school in her life. And then they haven't heard from them for 18 months. Unbelievable. Prime Mover says, is a cocoa leaf diet plan effective for losing weight? Yes, I'm sure it is. Yeah, no kidding. Think how hard it was for those kids in Haiti and Dominican Republic eating sugar cane all day. R. Frost says, good afternoon from Montana. Glad you can make it, Frost. We were just making fun of Mars M&Ms for their slave labor practices overseas. Oh, my God. What a world. What a world. The Wicked Witch was right. She was right. Unbelievable how that works. And now we're going to bounce from Guyana to Ireland again. Been coming up a lot. And this is from the Messenger. And the article reads, or the title of the article, Ireland triggers Europe's new tech rules for the first time amid the Dublin riots. Monkey says that stevia is a good alternative to sugar. Yeah, they probably have kids chopping that up too. So here we go. There's that famous shot of Dublin right there, looking like Paris, which is going to host an upcoming round of Olympic Games, which is a mistake, by the way. You know that that the majority of the time, nearly all of the time, when a city hosts an Olympic event, it costs them a fortune. They lose money. They lose money, and they get stuck with derelict buildings and structures that the community has no use for, that they're stuck maintaining at taxpayer expenses. Out in Georgia, I'm in Georgia, and it's in Conyers? The horse park from when Atlanta hosted the Olympic Games is still there. There's nothing out there. They have an event every few weeks just to maintain it, but it costs more than they make. It says Ireland has become the first country to trigger the European Union's novel alert system as part of the bloc's new sweeping tech oversight legislation, the Digital Services Act. The law went into effect in August and lays out stringent requirements for big tech firms to take more responsibility for hate speech and harmful content posted to online platforms, including social media and messaging apps. Messaging apps. Keep that in mind. By triggering the alert, Irish regulators have prompted the European Commission to send a warning to social media companies like Meta and X over content that may violate the DSA on their sites, local media RTA reported. The alert comes as rioting and anti-immigrant protests have gripped the capital, Dublin, after 4 people, including 3 children, were injured in a knife attack. In the wake of the unrest, some social media users had posted harmful content in Irish Gaelic that violates the terms of the DSA to try and dodge the platform's largely English language moderation systems. And then there's a quote here. It says, in the case of the riots in Dublin, we saw that those spreading hatred, illegal and harmful content exploited the lack of Gaelic-speaking moderators, a commission official told RTE. Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, we already know this isn't correct. It says that the alert comes as rioting and anti-immigrant protests have gripped the capital, Dublin, after 4 people, including 3 children, were injured in a knife attack. Okay, it's not 4 people, it's 6. And they were critically injured. 4 children and a woman who were initially attacked by not an immigrant, an illegal alien who has been hiding out in Ireland for apparently 20 years and had active deportation orders. They were supposed to be looking for this guy to throw him out of the country, an Albanian man. 2 of the people, the local boys, who saw what was going on and rushed him to beat him down and get hold of him to stop him from the knife attack, 2 of those men were also critically injured and ended up spending a lot of time in the hospital. So 6 people were injured. He was not a citizen. And this sort of thing has been happening. Not to that extent, but they've had a lot of trouble in Ireland, a country where nearly 20% of their population is now migrants, not even citizens, diluting their culture. Where we read in the article yesterday that one of the small towns there of 100 people was complaining that the government said they were going to dump 950 Ukrainian refugees there. Imagine having a village of 100 people in the middle of nowhere, and they want to take buses and dump 950 Ukrainian refugees. And then the buses show up, and it's all Africans and people from the Middle East. So they didn't even tell these people the truth. And you wonder why they're upset? And how much longer before this type of digital crackdown turns into what they do in India, where they cut off all cell phone and internet contact and isolate communities completely? Where are we going to get to this? R. Frost says the worst part is that the reporter will face no consequences for being erased, piece of crap, and picking on a little kid. I'm sorry, the reporter needs to be sued for slander or libel. I guess R. Frost is talking about the kid with the face paint. He says reporters need to start being held accountable for spreading false information. And they need to be held accountable financially. Urban says, I wonder if the progressive kids in Ireland are finally starting to see why Israel matters. No kidding. No kidding, because they're going to be in it themselves. They're going to be in it themselves. It's already happening. It's already happening. The country has been invaded. 20% population increase is an invasion. It's an invasion. It's going to destroy a centuries-long culture and tradition model that they've existed under. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It's terrible to see that happening. And it's happening all over the Western world. Merv says, is any NBA or NFL players taking a knee because of all this child slavery? If you're the one, thank you for not being a hypocrite and a coward. Nobody's taking a knee for that. They're taking a knee for slavery in America because they feel like they're still oppressed by it. I have all these American millionaires and billionaires whining about oppression. I really want to hear a guy who's worth $400 million talk to me about how they're racially oppressed. That's what I want to know. That'll make me feel good to hear that, to hear some like famous athlete or actor or musician who's worth millions and even billions. I'm so oppressed and I'm subjected to racism all the time. Sure you are. Yeah, you know exactly how it feels. Pure sarcasm there, ladies and gentlemen. Jumping to the Western Journal and leaping all the way across the world from Ireland to Connecticut, because we talked about this just recently. It's about electric vehicles and how New Jersey is pushing for the banning of the sale of electric vehicles so they can go all electric by 2035, which is ridiculous. And how these communities don't seem to be learning a lesson from what happened in New York, where they've had to kibosh that program because New York was doing it too, but they couldn't get the electric snowplows to work and had to basically put them in storage and go back to using diesel powered snowplows. The electric snowplows couldn't cut it. And then Prime Mover says, why integrate into society when you can just get stabby? Diversity is strength. Yeah, I know. Diversity is our strength. That's such a lie. In Connecticut, it says Connecticut governor forced to pull gas car ban proposal in a major defeat for electric vehicle pushers. I guess the governor of Connecticut has figured it out. Someone needs to tell them in New Jersey and Massachusetts. When even Ned Lamont believes phasing out internal combustion cars by 2035 is a lost cause, you better believe it's a lost cause. I love it. Lamont is currently Connecticut's governor. Those with long memories might remember that in 2006, having decided that then Senator Joe Lieberman, formerly Al Gore's running mate, was insufficiently lefty, challenged him in the Democratic primary. Lamont won the primary, although Lieberman prevailed by running as an independent in the general election. I don't care about all that. Get to the meat of the story. In office, he's been along for the ride during the Northeast leftward drift in the 21st century. This included regulations to, as local publication Connecticut's New Junkie noted, incrementally phase out the sale of new gas-powered vehicles by the magical date of 2035, exactly what New York tried to do and exactly what New Jersey announced like 2 weeks ago that they are going to do. When everyone seems to believe ICE cars can stop being sold. However, according to WTNH, Governor Lamont announced he was withdrawing the ban proposal on Monday. The Legislative Regulation Review Committee, which is made up of 14 lawmakers, was set to have a hearing and vote on Tuesday regarding the ban on the sale of gas-powered cars in 2035. The Hartford-based station reported. On Monday afternoon, legislative sources told News 8 that the committee would hold off on the scheduled vote. The move was celebrated as a victory for common sense by legislative Republicans. It's not just Republicans that feel that way, but they always want to make it either a Democratic or a Republican Party thing. Something we talked about yesterday is the last 3 presidents have really hurt us in division, intentionally or otherwise. Obama hurt us with a big racial divide. During the Trump administration, we were hurt by a big political divide between Republicans and Democrats. It got worse than it ever was. It may not necessarily be Trump's fault, but it happened. And now during Biden, it's the alphabet mafia divide. Everything is trans this and gay that. And he's got everybody at each other's throats over it. Brian says he's in New Jersey. Sorry, Brian. All People says, what's odd is that actual slave descendants in the U.S. usually do not whine about slavery. I know, because my wife is the first one to tell you. And she is an actual legitimate slave descendant. Her family were field hands picking tobacco and cotton. She can trace her lineage. And She hates all of that. She hates all that division. Helter says battery reliant EVs aren't a reasonable long-term solution. The biggest problem is they must be replaced in 10 years. Used gas vehicles last longer than that. And Dragon says electric cars are actually worse for the environment, but shush, it's not really about the environment. Say it isn't so. Say it isn't so. It's not really about the environment, you think? It's not about it's about checking boxes and virtue signaling and pretending to care and spinning a narrative. Is that what you're suggesting, Dragon? I can't believe it. I just can't wrap my mind around it. What do you think, Granny Smith? See Granny Smith sitting in the chair behind me. But yeah, I guess the governor of Connecticut has figured it out. This isn't going to work. Hopefully, Connecticut hasn't invested, or lawmakers in Connecticut haven't invested too much tax money into electric vehicles yet. You know what I mean? Just like New York, they spent a fortune on those damn snow plows. $535,000 a piece for electric snow plows that don't work. They can't cut it, can't stay on, they freeze over, or they can't push the load, or they die before the shift's over. As opposed to diesel-powered snow plows that cost less than $200,000 a piece. Hopefully Connecticut didn't waste too much tax money on that shit. It makes me think of, I think it was Connecticut, and this is going back to the 80s again. I remember an article, because when I was a kid, I used to read the newspaper. Okay, I used to deliver the newspaper. I used to deliver for the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald back when they used to have kids would get a job carrying newspapers and throwing them around on people's doorsteps. That was me. And I used to read the paper, and I used to do it mostly I would do the crosswords and the jumble and the other puzzles. I love doing that kind of stuff. But I would read it too. And one of the articles that stood out, and I want to say it was Connecticut, had invested a fortune in these they weren't snow plows, they were like Zamboni trucks that would melt the ice. So they spent all this millions of dollars on these things to drive over the roads, and it would melt the ice instead of plowing it because they had trouble putting the snow somewhere. If you ever been in a big city, like, I grew up in Massachusetts, and when they plow the snow, if it's bad, you got 15, 20 foot high mountains of snow on street corners all over the place because they get nowhere to put it. And then when it thaws, there's street signs and park benches and trash cans and all kinds of stuff stuck in the middle of it because the plows can't see anything through the high snow and they just crush everything in their path. Bicycles are in there and stuff. I used to wonder if they would find dead bodies in there. But they invested in these Zamboni trucks. They were expensive as hell. They were supposed to melt the snow. And the test run of these trucks after they bought them was a disaster because, of course, when you melt the snow and you spray the water out and it's freezing outside, what happens to the road? Nobody thought of that? They were making ice slicks all over the place, and there were hundreds of car wrecks. And they had to garage all of those Zambonis. They couldn't get rid of them. Urban says from Google, batteries are made from lithium, cobalt, and nickel that depend on mining activities using up groundwater, which draws down its available resource for farmers and herders. Also, it creates a lot of polluted water. And Prime Mover says you have about 5 minutes left. Kitty show and tell time. Oh, no. Well, maybe I'll pull up Granny Smith for you. I don't know where anybody else is right now. They're all hiding, sleeping. And All People says Obama was not a true black president. He was a mulatto and never claimed to be anything other than mulatto until he ran for office. That's right. And there's nothing wrong with being mixed as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. I could care less if somebody is mixed. But don't pretend to be one or the other if it's convenient, which is what he did. He claimed to be black, and he played the race card. He played the race card, and it's embarrassing to have a sitting president playing the race card. It's humiliating. Don't pretend to be a victim, Obama. There's nothing victim-like about you. You've been getting groomed since you were a teenager. You don't go from an alderman to a senator for a few weeks and then get to be president unless you were groomed, because you're not that charismatic. And I know they used to call him the great orator. I don't think he's a good speaker. I really don't. He doesn't flub while reading the teleprompter, but he can't speak off the top of his head. And he doesn't write his own speeches. I don't think he's a good speaker, personally. I really don't. He sounds snarky and arrogant when he talks. And I know I can sound sarcastic when I talk. And, I can be a little flowery when I read. And that comes from when I used to work with my kids. When I taught them to read, I would do all the voices to make it more interesting. And we would go a page at a time. And I did this with Seeger's Complete Popeye Collection, which is a bunch of books that are like this. Seeger's original Sunday strips from the 30s. And I would read one page, and then my son would have to read the other page. And I would do all the voices. So I read dynamically. And Deanna says they used to dump snow in rivers. Then it was stopped. Yeah, because they were polluting the rivers, because the snow, of course, picks up all the garbage. And you don't know what you're dumping into the river when you collect the snow that way. It's all, all the trash that's in the streets and anything else that they pick up that might obstruct it. Like if they scooped up a park bench, like I had said earlier, I used to see park benches demolished by snowplows, bicycles, street signs, anything they couldn't see that was buried under the snow. Hopefully there were no hobos in there. You never know. I never read a story. I think I might have. I've heard of pets being found frozen in the snow. And Monkey says, don't eat the yellow snow. I'd be afraid to eat any of it. I'd be afraid to eat any snow. You never know. Don't eat the yellow snow, as we're getting close to the hour. And who wanted to see a cat? Prime Mover said he wanted to see a cat. Well, it's right there. You saw her at the beginning if you were watching. Dusty is in one of the bedrooms. And I don't know where Uncle I know where Miss Kitty is. She's downstairs. Miss Kitty's hiding downstairs because that's what she likes to do. She likes to hide downstairs. But yeah, I think it's a complete waste of time. It would be nice if we could go all electric. I'm all for better air quality, but you can't force it. You can't force a complete change in a system like this. You can't coerce people into switching up and doing something different like that because you say so. And that's a dictatorship. That's a totalitarianistic society. They've already done it to us with light bulbs, though. Good luck finding incandescent bulbs anymore. That industry's been destroyed. And the incandescent bulbs are better than the fluorescent ones. The fluorescent ones are bad for your eyes. No, I don't believe you, Prime Mover. He says yellow snow tastes like lemonade. Sure it does. And Monkey says a week or two ago, a libertarian in Argentina won, and he hates the woke stuff. Good. Maybe it'll make a difference. Granny Smith, you want to make a public appearance for those who are able to see? Anybody who didn't see you earlier? Come here, dear. You all right? Come here. Don't be afraid. There we are, darling. There we are, little girl. I'll put you right back, okay? There she is, Miss Granny Smith, everybody. Her elbow is still healing. She still walks with a limp, but she doesn't keep her arms suspended anymore when she walks around because it is doing better. As you can see, she is not afraid, and that's really interesting for a cat who has always been outdoors, as I understand it, never been indoors. And also, like I had said, I've mentioned it before, this is a cat who, even though she's never lived indoors, once we collected her and brought her into the house, never made an attempt to go back outside again. If the door's open, she won't go near it. Never made the attempt again, right? You like being inside, don't you, baby? Anyways, with that, we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. Of course, this is Coffee Talk, and you can find me at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube. So please do find me there, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, and at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, for any of you who use Twitter. And do look for me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will do this again tomorrow.